Time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. And joining us are the Telegraph's Sam Dean and Paul McInnes from The Guardian. Welcome to you both. Let's quickly run everyone through the back pages then, starting with the Telegraph, who say that Chelsea are closing in on the appointment of Liam Rosenior following the departure of Enzo Maresca on New Year's Day. More on Chelsea in The Guardian as Rosenior opens the door to Chelsea with praise for owners. That story also features in The Times as Ben Stokes imploring the ECB to stick with head coach Brendan McCullum. And I need more time. Nancy pleas for patience ahead of Old Firm test. That is in the Scottish Mail. But only one place to start, really. And Sam, we're going to start with you because this is your paper and your story. Back of the Telegraph, front of the Telegraph, Chelsea close in on Rosenior. Is this as good as a done deal as you see it?
I don't think it's quite at that point, but it's certainly the strong expectation now that Liam Rosenior will be offered this job and take it. And our information, as we've reported on the back page tonight, is that the Chelsea players themselves are also now expecting Rosenior to be the man. Now, that's not to say they know for certain that he will be, but that seems to be the indication that they've got and their expectations. So all signs are currently pointing towards Rosenior. I think it's probably quite an exciting appointment for lots of people, but also I imagine for quite a few in the Chelsea fan base, an appointment that also raises a fair few concerns too about his experience and what he's done in the coaching so far, his age, and also the ongoing concerns about the structure at Chelsea and whether it is conducive to reaching the highest levels of the game once again.
Yeah, Paul, your paper, The Guardian, it says, so supportive. Rosenior opens door to Chelsea job with praise for owners. This is the key bit here with this, isn't it? That Liam Rosenior, Blue Co, who own Strasbourg as well as Chelsea. This is a quite a kind of neat appointment from an owner's perspective. They like this fella.
Yeah, absolutely. I think from the outside, this appointment sort of reeks of calm, really. I think it sounds like the ownership, they know what they want from their club, and it's the model. The model is to develop young players, to play with young players, to develop brands, to sell them on, to generate money from transfers. And the coaches are there to develop those players and to deliver performances at the same time. Back in the day with Abramovich, a manager would have been sacked because they weren't up competing for the top of the league. This hasn't happened with Maresca. From what we can understand from the outside, he's gone because he's deemed to become too big for his boots within the system. They want the system. They're going to get a man who knows the system, who plays the football that they're already playing at the squad, that can transplant one from the other. And he's a guy who's not going to come in, well, they don't expect him to come in with a big ego and loads of baggage. So I think this really seems like exactly what the ownership would want to be doing at this point.
Yeah, I mean, Sam, it's interesting. Paul mentions it reeks of calm. We're not used to Chelsea kind of reeking of calm, are we? Quite often the opposite. And you mentioned Abramovich as well. I mean, Chelsea fans, I wonder what they're kind of making of this as well. They're used to Mourinho and Thomas Tuchel and Carlo Ancelotti and these world-class managers. Yes, the model's changed, but what are they going to make of Liam Rosenior?
I think the fans who aren't convinced by this and aren't convinced by the strategy, I think their concern will be that Rosenior is a yes man, a company man, and somebody who knows Blue Co, has been there for a while already, knows the sporting directors, knows the owners, and will kind of do what they say and fit into their structure as they want it to. Obviously, that's what Chelsea want, and if you view the structure as king, which Chelsea do, then that's exactly what the club needs to move on forward. But I think it's fair to say there are still a lot of fans who are concerned, and I think understandably so, that this structure and the power they've entrusted into the sporting directors isn't guaranteed to bring success by any measure. And I think there will be concerns that Rosenior is just a company man who fits the box and ticks the boxes that the club wants, but isn't necessarily the best coach out there who could improve this team and drive them forward towards titles. And that might be a bit harsh because I think Rosenior has already shown in his coaching career, which is still very young, that he is a coach of immense potential. He's clearly a very intelligent and articulate man who can inspire young players, as he's proven that in France with Strasbourg and indeed in the Championship before then. So there's clearly a man with a lot of talent here. The question is he the man that Chelsea fans want? And if not, how much time will he get? We know they never really were convinced by Enzo Maresca, despite the Italian winning 2 titles. And I think it would be certainly a difficult task in the first few weeks for Rosenior to win them over, assuming he does get the job, as we are now expecting.
Yeah, Paul, just on that experience of Rosenior, I mean, he was interim at Derby, sacked at Hull, albeit he'd done quite a nice job, a difference in football philosophy. And then Strasbourg, he's doing well. They're top of the Conference League. They're 7th in Ligue 1. That's no mean achievement for a club of Strasbourg's side. But it's hardly the CV that you'd associate with a Chelsea manager.
No, absolutely not. And it's incredibly striking when you think about it in those terms. When you think about Ancelotti's, when you think about Gus Hiddink's of the past, it is a very different world. I think it's an interesting. We don't know what's really going on in their heads of Blueco, etc., and whether they are, what's the balance they're striking between kind of the model working and bringing home trophies. Where do they set that line? We kind of look at it and think, well, it's much more about the model. But there was a point in time in Maresca's tenure where it looked like they got the best of both worlds, that they were developing these players, beating Barcelona handily in the Champions League, being talked of as title rivals, were crouching up on Arsenal, looked like they had the squad to deal with it as well. Maresca was good at rotating his players, keeping the squad fresh. So I'm not sure it's impossible for them to be competing at the very top of English football and European football with this model, with a young coach who is brought in to develop players first and foremost. But it is going to be a big ask. I do think, though, like Sam's already mentioned, I do think Liam Rosenior is an impressive individual. I think he speaks very well. He's very thoughtful. He hasn't had things the easy way either. I think he got a very hard hand dealt with him at Hull. Just missing out on the playoffs, really turning the team around, playing exciting football, and then ditched. So, I think he's had a few scrapes and a few knocks already in his managerial career. He's not entirely a novice. I think it will be interesting to see if he can grow into the chair when Cobham, when he sits into it.
Yeah, and it'd be lovely to see a young British manager getting a gig at a top club, wouldn't it? Just talking of young managers, and we'll watch this space, obviously, on Liam Rosenior. The back of the sun, blue are you? The caretaker manager, Callum McFarlane. This is quite a nice story, Sam. He needed to change his pass to get in. He's suddenly taking on Manchester City on Sunday as Chelsea's caretaker manager. I'm sure he wouldn't have envisaged that at the start of the season or a few years ago when he was first taking on his coaching duties.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was at his press conference today, and it was really interesting, really engaging, and sort of entertaining press conference too, because he clearly acknowledges too the kind of madness of the situation and how quickly his career has suddenly changed in the past few days. For example, he explained to us that he was driving to Windsor Light Show with his family and kids on Thursday afternoon when he got a call saying, "You've got to come to work, we need to have a chat." And then he was quickly told, "You're managing against Pep Guardiola this weekend." So that's a pretty extraordinary few days for him. And I think you could argue this is probably the biggest managerial mismatch in Premier League history, if not arguably English football history. And that's not at all meant as a criticism of McFarlane, but fundamentally this is a man who has managed 0 senior football matches, having played 0 senior football matches, against Pep Guardiola, who's managed more than 1,000 and won 40 major trophies. So as the sort of head-to-head goes, it's a bit of a no contest. So this for him, for McFarlane, it's a great opportunity. It's his one chance to sort of swing for the big man and see if he can land any punches. And it's almost Rocky Balboa-esque of football management. So it'll be interesting to see what he does and how bold he is with the team selection, given that he will know, I'm sure, that he's only got this one game.
Yeah, it'd be fascinating to see what happens if he comprehensively wins. We're going to stay with the Sun and stay with Pep Guardiola, actually, Paul, because it says, "I'll decide if it ends," says Pep. Slightly prickly Pep Guardiola at his press conference when the links were made about Enzo maybe his successor, and this might be part of the reason why he's leaving Chelsea. Pep kind of bit back a bit.
Yeah, it did. And not surprisingly, really, because it's a conversation that's being had about him with him not in the room. I presume that such is the way in which Man City is built around Guardiola, and that every piece of the infrastructure is built according to his specifications and all the people he wants, that he knows that they are doing succession planning for him, because at some point he will leave. And I presume
Liam Rosenior has played down speculation linking him with a move to Chelsea, insisting he remains fully focused on his current role and the work in front of him. Speaking candidly, Rosenior admitted he has no idea what the future holds, but stressed that his priority is continuing to develop his team and maintaining the standards he has set, rather than being distracted by external rumors. While the Chelsea links continue to surface in the media, Rosenior made it clear that he is not getting drawn into talk about potential next steps. He acknowledged that football is unpredictable, but reaffirmed his commitment to the present, highlighting that any decisions about the future will be addressed at the right time and not driven by speculation or headlines.